Hello and welcome, dear viewers, to a new edition of Africa Today, where we get you the latest news and events taking place on the African scene. And we will start off with our major top stories and reports. The United Nations Security Council gave the green light for the deployment of 60 UN ceasefire monitors to Libya and called on the country's new unity government to prepare for free and inclusive elections on December 24. More details.
The United Nations Security Council gave the green light for the deployment of 60 UN ceasefire monitors to Libya and called on the country's new unity government to prepare for free, fair and inclusive elections on December 24th. A ceasefire in Libya has held since the autumn by the main road across the front lines from Sirte to Misrata remains closed. The Security Council unanimously approved Secretary General Antonio Guterres' proposal for deployment of the monitors. Libya's unity government was sworn in on March 15th from two warring administrations that had ruled eastern and western regions, completing a smooth transition of power after a decade of violent chaos. In the resolution adopted, the Security Council stressed the full, equal and meaningful participation of women and the inclusion of youth in the elections. Libya descended into chaos since the overthrow of leader Muammar al-Qaddafi in 2011. The Security Council also strongly urged countries to respect and support the ceasefire, including through the withdrawal of all foreign forces and mercenaries from Libya without delay, and demanded full compliance with its arms embargo in Libya.
Welcome back, and still with our special reports. The UN Refugee Agency and International Organization for Migration said that at least 41 people, including a child, have died after a boat carrying African migrants to Europe sank off Tunisia. We have more details in the following report.
The United Nations Security Council gave the green light for the deployment of 60 UN ceasefire monitors to Libya and called on the country's new unity government to prepare for free, fair and inclusive elections on December 24th. A ceasefire in Libya has held since the autumn by the main road across the front lines from Sirte to Misrata remains closed. The Security Council unanimously approved Secretary General Antonio Guterres' proposal for deployment of the monitors. Libya's unity government was sworn in on March 15th from two warring administrations that had ruled eastern and western regions, completing a smooth transition of power after a decade of violent chaos. In the resolution adopted, the Security Council stressed the full, equal and meaningful participation of women and the inclusion of youth in the elections. Libya descended into chaos since the overthrow of leader Muammar al-Qaddafi in 2011. The Security Council also strongly urged countries to respect and support the ceasefire, including through the withdrawal of all foreign forces and mercenaries from Libya without delay, and demanded full compliance with its arms embargo in Libya.
And the World Food Programme said that food prices in West Africa have jumped more than 30% since last year to their highest levels in nearly a decade due to coronavirus lockdowns and a decline in cereal production. More details.
The World Food Programme, the WFP, said that food prices in West Africa had jumped more than 30% since last year to their highest levels in nearly a decade due to coronavirus lockdowns and a decline in cereal production. The United Nations organization said in a statement that more than 31 million people are expected to become food insecure between June and August, raising the risk of health emergency as the region contends with conflicts and COVID-19. Across the region, prices of local staples such as rice are nearly 40% higher than 5 years averages, and in some countries staples cost more than double their average price. The WFP said almost 6.5 million people in those countries faced crisis or emergency levels of food insecurity in coming months. The Sahel region alone accounts for approximately half of the 10 million children under 5 in West Africa who are acutely malnutritioned in West Africa. About 800,000 of the nearly 2.5 million people WFP had identified as being at risk of famine are Nigeria and northeastern states, where millions have been displaced by the long-running Boko Haram insurgency. Up to 65,000 people in Nigeria's northeast are currently on the run after an attack by armed groups on Wednesday killed at least 8 people and injured a dozen more.
Welcome back, dear viewers. And on the Egyptian economy, we're glad to be joined over the phone by Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former assistant to the foreign minister. Good afternoon, Mr. Ambassador.
Good afternoon. How are you?
How are you, sir? Well, Mr. Ambassador, the Deputy Director General of the African Development Bank for North Africa and the country manager for Egypt, Malin Blomberg, said that Egyptian economy has demonstrated great resilience and agility to a large extent, thanks to the reforms undertaken since 2016 to stabilize the Egyptian economy. How do you assess Bloomberg's statement, sir?
I see that we are really lucky. We thank God on what is going on in our country. We are luckier than many other countries in the region and in the world. Because of the epidemic, we have two bad impacts on the whole world. The first is the disease itself, and we are trying our best to resist it, and I think we are doing fine. The second is the economic impact on the whole world. Mm-hmm. And here, neither the rockets of the United States nor the big fans of China protected the country from such a disease or such an economic negative impact. Mm-hmm. In Egypt, as you rightly said since a moment, that we started a courageous process of economic reform since November 2016. And because of this, we are standing in a very good position, or a relatively good position, when the economic impact of the disease is there. We can resist it because most of the world, 90% of the whole world or more, will diminish their economy. Mm-hmm. In Egypt, our economy, among something like 5 to 10 countries, will continue to grow positively. Right. Not to the extent we are aiming to, but still it is growing positively. Mm. And the estimation for the next 3 years, according to all international monetary institutions, is positive for Egypt. Mm-hmm. This will encourage us to work more, to produce more, to export more, because really we want to win the race between the percentage of growth and the percentage of the birth rate. Mm-hmm. We have a huge birth rate. Thank God we should be up to the level in order to give the chance for every child we give birth to eat more, to have healthcare, and to have services. Yes. And here is the real exam and the real change. We are doing. I hope that we do much better.
Well, Mr. Ambassador, do you agree that the COVID-19 pandemic has severely affected Africa, subjecting it to great uncertainty from both external and domestic risks?
Absolutely, because remember, it has stopped a good part of our activity in the whole world, yes, especially the services. Yes. And taking in consideration that almost half of our production is services, I'm talking about tourism, Suez Canal, Egyptians working abroad, giving their services, all of these are affected. Mind you that only one sector, which is the aviation, has stopped by 10%. Yes. And we have to resist this and trying to give fields of production in order to compensate those who lost their jobs. And I think the government is doing a good job. I hope they can double it to reach all those lost. I think it of every one of them. Yes. To every one of us. For the to make their life, their help to the children to have better education, better health care, and better life condition.
the pandemic is expected to affect the African continent's economy during 2021 and 2022?
Africa is really in great need of help even before the epidemic, and now it's much more in need. And we are working hard on that. We work with all the international monetary institutions. Our president was witnessing it, and where we decided to help in order to put Africa on a road for development. Africa, the flow of money from Africa, even in the normal situation, Africa is sending money out of the developed world much more than it received, because its export. This has to be changed, because you cannot continue like that, and there will not be any chance to live off of living with Africa, to find any field of cooperation.
Yes.
I think we have some good signals in the European and Japan. We have to reach a position where Africa can receive much help, whether for the epidemic itself or its economic impact, or for the investment in general, in order to keep the capacity of development in the whole continent.
Right. Well, Ambassador Bayoumi, how far is the African Free Trade Continental Agreement expected to boost the African economies of the African countries, in other words, and of course trade also among African countries? What are the expectations for the AFTA or the African Free Trade Agreement?
I take what happened in the last 20 years as a sort of resource of my expectations. In the last 20 years, we joined the COMESA, the Common Market for East and South Africa, with 21 countries, and it makes Egypt's export tripled. This is a very good result.
Yes.
During the presidency of President Fattah el-Sisi to the African Union, we proposed to combine all the free trade areas in Africa in one big free trade area of 1,200 million inhabitants, and we succeed to establish it. Now it is legally started with 51 countries. I think that if we realize that the COMESA was a story of success, then the large African free trade area will be another story of success.
Yes. Well, I would like to thank you very much, Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former assistant to the Foreign Minister. Thank you, sir. And dear viewers, that brings us to the end of this edition of Africa Today. Many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more coming up here on Nile TV International.